Department of Physics at Imperial College London, is here with me now. Let's pick up on that, because I started by saying the space race is back on. And how? So just how significant is this?
Well, this is really a signpost that makes public what those of us who work in space have been seeing developing for quite a few years now, which is China is a growing power in space. They've already had 3 other missions to the moon, Chang'e 1, 2 and 3, which show that they're doing stuff. And they're partners with the European Space Agency on various missions, including Herschel, which is one that I worked on. So this really nails their colours to the mast so that people can see much more publicly, perhaps, than has been visible before, that China is up and coming within the space business.
The far side of the moon, why is it so difficult? I mean, it's as much about getting their information back as the mission itself, isn't it?
Well, the far side of the moon is never visible from Earth, so you've got no direct line of sight from wherever you are on the far side of the moon back to the Earth, because you've got the whole bulk of the moon in the way. And so
a lot of people questioning, what does the moon spin then?
Okay, the moon spins, but it spins at a rate that matches its orbital period around the Earth. So the same side of the moon is always pointing towards the Earth. So it sort of goes around like that. So it's spinning, but it's spinning at the same rate that it's orbiting. So the far side of the moon, what some people, especially their Pink Floyd fans, might call dark side of the moon, it's not dark because it sees the sun. It's got the same day length as the near side of the moon. It's about 2-week day, 2-week night. And it's unknown territory. It is terra incognita, especially at the level of being able to get down and do some detailed studies on the surface.
We know even from pictures of the far side of the moon that it looks very different from the side that we're familiar with. Why is that?
Well, it's clearly had a very different geological history from the near side of the moon. There's a lot more cratering there, so the surface is older. And there are some very big craters there, for example, the one that Chang'e 4 has landed in. So that actually is very useful. It's essentially doing geological excavations before you get there. So the asteroid has hit the moon, whatever produces the crater, produced a big hole. So you've got a nice big place you can look inside the moon to see what's happening underneath the surface.
Which leads me on to what next? Is it to concentrate on the moon, maybe put a base there, or is this still part of a bigger plan to get us to Mars?
Well, I'm not privy to what the Chinese Space Agency may be planning. They're clearly very interested in the moon. There's some more plans for future landers which will take samples and will return those samples back to Earth.
How?
With another rocket that this lander will have, so that gets launched off and comes back home. So that will be the first samples from the moon that you can look at in a lab since Apollo, which is quite a big thing. But obviously there are plans in China for putting people on the moon, whether it's a landing or a more long-term base. Some of the experiments on Chang'e 4 actually are looking at things like the radiation environment on the moon, how dangerous that is to people. And there's a little biology experiment where they've got some silkworms and potatoes and some other plants all in a sealed environment, and they're going to see whether the silkworm eggs hatch, whether the plants germinate in low gravity conditions.
But for scientists like you, this is a big day.
Oh, we've had a couple of really good days recently with this and with New Horizons. So yes, it's very interesting. There's great potential on the far side of the moon for astronomy, radio astronomy especially, because you've got the whole of the moon there shielding you from the radio noise of the Earth. The Earth is very loud in the radio, and if you want to do very sensitive observations of cosmology, like some of my colleagues at Imperial, you need to get rid of that. You either do that actively, which is what's being done with current observatories on the Earth, or you do it by putting an extremely large chunk of rock called the moon in the way to blot it all out.
Doctor, it's great to talk to Dr. Dave Clements. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.